Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock, and this is a special Hempcrete double episode. Yep. First, we're going to talk to Monica Medina-McCurdy from All Together Now, Pennsylvania. We're going to hear about a 2-day hands-on Hempcrete workshop here in Pennsylvania led by Cameron McIntosh. And then we're going to talk to Kim Crows. She's a contractor from Michigan who attended one of these workshops last year and since then has completed the first Hempcrete house in Michigan. So we'll hear all about the work she's doing up there and her company, which is called Fiberful. So I love this episode because it highlights those connections and community and cooperation that is flourishing here in the world of Hempcrete. So I hope you enjoy it. We're going to take a quick sponsor break and then we'll be right back. This episode is made possible with support from Impactful Ventures, who encourage you to check out Farm, a platform enabling climate-minded investors to partner with leaders in regenerative agriculture who are improving the health and value of their land. Visit farmland.fi to learn more. This episode is brought to you in part by I&D Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where they believe in the goodness of hemp. I&D Hemp is a family-owned, mission-driven, and environmentally focused industrial hemp food, feed, and fiber company, providing new opportunities for farmers and rural communities. Their mission is to provide innovative agricultural products and services to connect American farmers with the pioneers and businesses that see hemp as a way to bring real and lasting change to our communities and planet. Learn more at indhemp.com. All right. Hey, welcome back, everybody. So here we are. It's the last week of March 2023. I'm recording this show a little earlier this week so I can get it all done and out to you before I head to Colorado. By the time you hear this, I will be in Colorado Springs at the NOCO Hemp Expo. But the big news this week is that U.S. Senators Jon Tester, Democrat from Montana, and Mike Braun, a Republican from Indiana, they introduced the Bipartisan Industrial Hemp Act to ease the burden on farmers who grow grain and fiber hemp. Yes, this is the hemp exemption bill that we've been waiting for a long time. This bill would exempt farmers exclusively growing industrial hemp from the burdensome background checks and costly sampling and testing protocols required for farmers growing cannabinoid hemp. Yeah, we've been waiting for this a long time, and I think it's super important that we differentiate between cannabinoid hemp and industrial hemp, right? We got to make it easy for our farmers to just start growing hemp in mass quantities. You know how I feel about hemp at scale, and this is an important step towards that. And congratulations to the people who have been working tirelessly to get this bill done, right? You know who you are. And I'm sure we'll be talking to some of you about this bill in the next few weeks. So anyway, congratulations to you all. And thanks Jon Tester and Mike Braun for realizing that this is important. So that's the big news, and I'm sure everyone at NOCO will be talking about it. And speaking of NOCO, my trip there this year is made possible by a generous contribution from Sunray Hemp at 62 North degrees in Alaska. So thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. All right, and just one more nugget of hemp news, and this one ties really nicely into our Hempcrete discussion today. I'm reading about this at hempbuildinginstitute.org, and it's talking about the R-value test for Hempcrete. So Cameron McIntosh's company Americharnve, they performed this testing to evaluate the insulation R-value of hemp lime samples made using the eReezy spray equipment and the eReezy 120 binder, and the results showed on average R-value of 2.2 per inch for samples at a density range of 14.73 to 15.2 pounds per square foot. So there you go, R-value for Hempcrete. All right, let's get on with our special Hempcrete episode. Monica Medina-McCurdy, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
Hi there. Great. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. I wonder if you could give us a brief introduction.
Sure. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm Monica Medina-McCurdy, and I'm Executive Director of All Together Now, Pennsylvania. And I've been here for the incredibly long time of about 1 year, hired by Judy Wicks last year.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it's been a couple of years since Judy was on our show.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm guessing a lot has changed at Altogether Now Pennsylvania in that time, but I'm also guessing that the core mission has not changed. I wonder if you could sort of explain what the core mission of Altogether Now Pennsylvania is.
Sure, yeah. So our mission is to unite Pennsylvania's rural and urban communities to build just, regenerative, and resilient regional economies. And we want those economies to help Pennsylvanians become self-reliant in our basic needs, particularly around food, textiles, plant medicine, and building materials. Those are our four areas of focus. And we think by localizing our economies, we can increase community wealth, reduce and sequester carbons because we sort of shorten that supply chain, and we can also prepare for climate change. That's a lot longer than our official mission statement, but I like to put a little explanation in
Yeah.
there.
Well, thank you for that. And that's a big mission, a really important mission.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe dig in a little bit more, like why are resilient communities important?
Well, I think we've seen just through our own global experience of having gone through a pandemic that when there is, um, a big crisis that could hit communities unexpectedly, that can disrupt sort of things that we take for granted, we want those communities to have some kind of underlying resilience to be able to weather and withstand that. So I think that's something that the pandemic taught us. And, Judy started this organization a couple years before we experienced COVID,
Hmm.
but uh, I think the lessons of COVID make it even more apparent why our mission is needed. Because we realized where there were things that we took for granted weren't available anymore because the supply chains got disrupted. So now we have this opportunity to kind of learn from that experience and think about how can we localize our economies more to build in that resilience that we need, so that we're not so dependent on things, the very basic necessities coming all the way from California or coming from China or coming from anywhere else other than kind of within an area that's more manageable.
Right, right. Yeah. How is Altogether Now sort of divided up? From what I
Mhm.
remember, there were different pillars. Can you talk about what the different pillars are?
Yeah, yeah. So the different pillars, actually, the through line with all four of our pillars is hemp. But and that's really was the big impetus for Judy when hemp became legalized in 2018.
Hmm.
She said we need to form an organization to deal with this new reality and this amazing opportunity. So she formed four coalitions around food and specifically around creating local supply chains for hemp in grain and oils. Then she also built a coalition for textiles, hemp textiles, building materials, so Hempcrete, which I'm excited to talk about a little bit more today, and plant medicine for cannabis, adult use cannabis legalization in particular. So we try to deal with the whole plant,
Right.
and we know that there's different ways that policies kind of divide up the plant, but uh, we're trying to address the whole plant and build local economies around all the different ways the plant can be used.
Right. I was at, I think maybe the second or third meeting of Altogether Now up at
Uh-huh.
Drew and
Yeah,
Anna's place up
yeah,
at their
I hear
farm.
about that. Yeah, that's like
Yeah,
the
that was
history.
that was an interesting night. That was great. We had dinner in a barn, and next to us were just, stacks of hemp herds. So it
Wow,
was, and this
cool.
was I think 2019. So it was,
Hmm.
yeah, it was great. It was
Really new. Yeah.
very dreamlike. Yeah, well, let's talk about Hempcrete because I know you just announced a workshop coming up in May 6th and 7th. It's a Hempcrete workshop. Can you tell
Yeah,
us
we're
a bit about
so
that?
excited about that. Yeah, thanks. So we have a hemp, industrial hemp promotion project that's going on now. And it's all due to a recent award that we got from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture a couple of months ago. And that award is helping us promote hemp as a building material and for textiles. That's the
Awesome.
two focuses. So the Hempcrete workshop is going to allow our partner, who's Cameron McIntosh from Americharnve, to teach anyone who's interested, maybe from the building trades or their apprentices or they're just hemp enthusiasts who want to learn how to build hempcrete panels as a very valuable, legitimate building construction material. So we're holding that workshop and we're capping it at around 40 participants. Don't want to make it too big because
Sure.
people have to be hands-on. They're actually going to be learning about mixing the hemp lime and also building the panels in the correct way to make sure that they're structurally sound. And and then we're going to take those panels and work with another partner that we have, who is Farmer John in Philadelphia. You've probably heard of her. She's an amazing entrepreneur, is growing her agricultural business to really, to amazing heights in a relatively short amount of time.
That's
And
Krista, right?
Krista Barfield, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So she'll be building a small corner store as a market outlet for all of her crops and her agricultural commodities. And in that corner store, we're going to build them with the Hempcrete
Oh,
panels.
that's awesome. Okay.
So it's going to be a sustainable building. I mean, it's small. It's not a huge building, but it's a perfect sort of demonstration of the beauty of Hempcrete and kind of like seeing it in action,
Right.
and then uniting it with Krista's mission and with Farmer John's mission is just the icing on the cake.
Right. And you're saying Farmer John, it's a Philly thing, JOWN for folks outside of the
Dawn, yeah.
region. Yeah. Yeah.
JAWN, that's right.
Right. Yeah. Krista's great. I know her. I've interviewed her. I think
Oh, good.
just once. But
Yeah.
I've been down to, is it her shop down in Germantown or near there?
Yeah, I think her first, well, she has a greenhouse, where she sells her Viva Leaf, and then she's got an Elkins Park,
Right. Elkins
piece
Park.
of land in Elkins Park, and then she just recently got over 100 acres in Chester County. So she has
Oh,
exploded in size,
right.
and she's doing an amazing agripreneur project and program, training others who are new to farming and agriculture.
Awesome. Yeah, she's great. She's just got this amazing energy and she just gets stuff done.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so great.
Uh-huh.
Cool. So let's get back to the workshop. So it's May 6th and 7th. So who do you think would be coming to this workshop?
Yeah, yeah. We hope that we really want to attract people who are established already in the building trades, because we think that there's a huge need for education, and mainstreaming hempcrete, and we want to start with the people who are very close to the industry.
Hmm.
Now, we're not going to turn away anybody who's not necessarily working professionally there, but we really are. I'm trying to do a lot of targeted outreach to architects, to developers, to people who finance development, to people in trades, all the different kinds of trades. Maybe they work in insulation, or they work mostly with cement, or things like that. We want them to give them an opportunity, and we're making it pretty affordable given the amount of time and knowledge and expertise that Cam is going to share with them. We're only charging on a sliding scale, $50 to $100 per day. So the
Oh,
max you
okay.
might
Yeah.
2 whole days is $200, and we'll give you a little safety equipment. We'll give you some food, and then the expertise of building these panels and understanding the building material.
Awesome. And that sliding scale is based on need or what, how do you determine that?
Yeah, we want people to pay a minimum of $50 a day,
Hmm.
but if they can pay a little bit more, we are planning to offer scholarships,
Oh, okay.
because we do want to make it very accessible to people who are brand new. Maybe they're in an apprenticeship and their income isn't that high, but they're learning a building trade. We want to make it accessible, because
Right.
we do have the grant.
Yeah.
The state grant is helping to pay for a chunk of costs for this, so we do want to make it accessible for folks.
Awesome. And then where can people go to sign up for it?
Yeah, they can go to our website. Our registration link is going to be posted soon, but I did send out an email, so they can go to altogetherNowPA.org on our events page.
Okay.
They can email me too. It's just Monica@altogetherNowPA.org.
All
Very
right.
easy to remember. If they definitely want to be in the loop when the registration link opens.
Cool. Okay. So you said hemp is sort of the through line through the pillars. Can you talk about, textiles?
Sure, I'd love to. So as you know, hemp can be a valuable raw material to create beautiful textiles, and can be blended with other types of natural textiles. So we see the potential in that too, and we see interest within different parts of the state. People from weavers to people who want to farm and grow the hemp, to people who want to take the fabric and turn it into beautiful end uses, or even for industrial purposes or for clothing. So we wanted to sort of use the opportunity of the grant to be able to promote the idea of hemp for textiles and bring that message to different audiences from every aspect of the supply chain. We do think there's a lot of just general public consumer education about hemp. There's still, as you know, a lot of misinformation or stigma around the word hemp, where it's conflated with marijuana or cannabis, and it needs to be, there needs to be obviously definitions and nuance around that.
Right.
So we want to do some public education around that, as well as like let folks know this is a very sustainable, green, environmentally friendly material for textiles. And a little bit more on that. Textiles is probably one of the worst industries to pollute our environment. It is due to the onset of fast fashion. We have textile waste that is being produced by the ton every single day. And it's actually affecting poorer countries where all of our textile waste is being shipped to other countries to deal with. And it's becoming an environmental disaster there. So we want to promote a more circular textile economy. Hemp is definitely a good ambassador for circular textiles,
Sure.
as well as organic cotton and flax and wool.
Yeah.
But the other, so we want to help with that. We want to help change sort of the way that textiles is produced, which is really derivatives from fossil fuels and
Right.
petroleum-based products.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's a great ambassador for that circular economy.
Mm-hmm.
On last week's show, I interviewed Laura Sullivan. She's a fiber artist in Vermont, and she talks about how clothing
Mm-hmm.
is agriculture. It needs to, from the
Yeah,
soil out in
yeah,
the
yeah.
world and then back to the soil.
Yes, we
And
grow your clothes. Yeah, my
right,
screensaver is actually the soil to soil circular
right,
economy that
right.
reminds me every single day of why this type of work is important. Because
Yeah,
when people come to understand that you can grow your clothes, people will start to make different choices. They'll
yep,
start to understand that, yeah, when I like this what I'm wearing now, sorry, your listeners can't see this, I'm wearing a wool sweater, and it reminds me also every day of like this sweater is so much better than the other sweaters I have in my closet because they're polyester, and once they have lived their life, they're just going to sit in a landfill, or they can, if I can't sell, so nobody else wants to wear it, there's nothing else that you can do with it. It's done.
right. They'll just break down into smaller and
Plastic.
smaller microplastics. And then where do they
Right.
go? They go into the ocean. Yeah,
Right. It's such a shame. And we used to, as a country, not that we need to go back to, 200 years ago, but Pennsylvania, as you know, was a center for growing hemp, was a center for growing flax, and a center for growing wool. And we did our own, and a lot of the clothing came from natural sources.
right,
And that all makes sense today, now, knowing what we know now of like the devastation of fast fashion and
right,
things like
right. And just the whole, like, what's the corporate responsibility for like packaging and trash and things like that? Like back in the day, like soda companies would, take their bottles back and there was, some kind of
yeah.
circularness to it. But over the
Mhm.
course of my lifetime, like here in southeastern Pennsylvania, I can think of at least 3 different landfills that weren't there when I was a kid and now they look like mountains. Like there's some issues that we need to work on. And yeah, I think hemp can tie right into that.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I think the corporate responsibility is really important. There's a lot of good work being done at national, international levels that we're trying to plug into, that really say that if you're going to be making these clothes and you're making them out of petroleum-based fibers, basically your polyester blends, then you need to come up with a solution for how this can be either taken apart and recycled, repurposed, or dealt with.
Yeah.
This can't just be the cost of that needs to be figured into your cost of business.
Yeah.
Because right now there's no penalty for these companies that are churning out new fashions every single week. We're going to be showing we're going to be doing this in partnership with Phoenixville Area Transition in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
We're going to be showing a movie to talk about fast fashion, and having a panel of folks within our coalition to talk to the public about how to about the fast fashion issue, and then what we can do personally as consumers, but what we need to do at a sort of a policy level too
Right.
to change that. We'll be talking about hemp there as well,
Awesome.
in terms of how we make our clothes.
Right. It's like the corporations just kind of foist the stuff on us. Like you said, there's no,
Cost of business isn't include. It's not. That's not considered a cost of.
right, right. It's like the consumers are punished for it and the environment is punished for it.
Mhm.
And yeah, we can
And the
do
poor
better.
workers and the poor workers in these factories too. I mean, I can get from Shine and from, I'm going to name those guys. It's Shine and H&M. And yeah, I know I'm forgetting a couple of biggies. Oh, Zara, Shine, H&M, Zara. If you can go and buy a pair of pants for $15, and that's not what it costs to make it. And it's certainly not what it costs to dispose of it.
Right.
So consumers just really need to understand that. And then then our politicians need to hold the corporations responsible for that.
Right. I mentioned Laura Sullivan, the fiber artist that I talked to last week, and she told me that I guess back in maybe the early 1990s, 50% of the clothes that Americans wore were made here in the U.S.
That is true. It's amazing, isn't it?
And now it's like 2% of the clothes are made here. And we've offshored everything, I guess, because of NAFTA and, all these economic reasons.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we've decimated like the rural communities because most of those factories were in rural areas. People had jobs. There was
We had
dignity
mills.
associated with the jobs. We
Yes.
lost a lot.
We had a lot of textile mills in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We used to be the wool epicenter of the country.
Yeah.
Woolrich started here in Pennsylvania. Woolrich made the wool tuxedo, the plaid,
Yeah.
like hunting outfit with the hats, and it was made in Pennsylvania.
Up in
And
Lock Haven, right?
yep, and they moved their headquarters only a couple years ago, 2018. They moved their headquarters to Italy. They have Italy, Japan, Australia, maybe South America. Don't quote me on that. But they have one store, I believe, one outlet left here in Center County, Pennsylvania, and they used to make wool blankets for the Civil War, for
Wow.
World War I, for
Yeah.
World War II. That's how far back it goes, and now we don't have that industry here anymore, and that's actually another. In addition to hemp, we're really interested in wool too,
Right.
but that's something that we really lost,
Yep.
and it's important to bring it back for a million reasons, economic and environmental.
Are you aware of any endeavors to bring like bigger scale textile manufacturing back to Pennsylvania?
Yeah, well, I think in the hemp space, there's some, definitely like different groups that are interested in that. I know, we've talked to a local manufacturer of textiles here. Well, our partner, one of our coalition members is Dave Cook from Tuscarora, and Heidi Kuster from Tuscarora Mills. They're weavers of hemp and organic cotton and flax. And so they're very interested in we calling it reshoring and restoring textiles in Pennsylvania. And I know that there are many others in the PA Hemp Steering Committee that are interested as well.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, I think, investment too, because as you know, we need processing. We need the ability to process, and then producers need to know that they're going to have a buyer at the end of their crop cycle, that they're going to have guarantee of income for whatever they grow. And they also need to understand more what are the requirements for growing the right kind of crop so that it's appropriate for textiles.
Right.
There's a lot of moving parts to it, but I think there's a lot of interest. It's just a matter of sort of how to bring it all together.
Right. All together, right? All together now.
All together now. Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was totally accidental. I love that.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of chatter about things happening in the textile space here in Pennsylvania, so it's exciting. And I have like supreme faith in our farmers. And I know in the beginning of the hemp stuff, it was like, oh, get all the farmers on board. The farmers will show up when the markets are there and the processing is in place, because we have some of the best farmers in the world and they know what they're doing. And so we need investment, we need processing. So
one piece we're working on that we feel like we have some expertise in, because of, I want to definitely mention Rachel Higgins here. She's our coalition leader for clothing and textiles.
Okay.
She couldn't make it this morning, but hopefully you'll be able to talk to her for a future interview.
Yeah.
But she has a lot of ties within the design industry, fashion design,
Hmm.
and she knows a lot of people that are interested in understanding how to work with those different natural fibers, including hemp, and people who want to start to work on projects.
Right.
So we're actually a little later today, we're talking to the Green Gov Council of Pennsylvania, which is basically all of the agencies represented in the state of Pennsylvania on this council, and they're looking at sustainability as a government project. How they can use renewable energy and how they can basically be more sustainable as a when they procure goods and services.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking to them today to pitch our idea of the government procuring textiles that are more sustainable, and how can we help with that, or can we come up with something that they would maybe use in a uniform for state government employees that would be made from textiles grown here in Pennsylvania. And we see
Awesome.
that as a really amazing, not only marketing tool for things like hemp, flax, and wool, but also really get all the government employees sort of sensitized to the idea of growing our own textiles
Right.
too.
Well,
Not to
that,
mention building materials. That's a whole nother thing
right,
too, but we're
right.
starting with a textile project with them. So we'll be talking with them literally in like an hour. I'm
Okay.
scheduled
Well,
to
is that like a public meeting that will be available? Because this interview we're conducting on March 21st, but we won't publish till next week. So is that something that people could search for and like watch a
I don't think
webinar?
they're public. I think they're just sort of like their business meeting they
Oh,
have
okay. All right.
within the government, the
Yeah.
different agencies. But hopefully, if it takes hold, or if it will make sense to them, we'll definitely let you know so we
Okay.
can.
Well, that sounds like a great educational opportunity to educate the folks in government. So thank
Yeah,
you
it's
for doing
almost
that.
like I'm using this as practice for
Oh,
that meeting.
all right. Good. Well, you're doing a good job. So
Thanks.
yeah, I'm just thankful I'm not in government.
Right. I think it'd be a little frustrating.
All right. Well, let's recap the event, the
Mhm.
Hempcrete workshop on May 6th and 7th. It's in Barto, Pennsylvania, which is Berks County. It's
Mhm.
actually at Wild Fox Provisions. It's a farm up there on
Uh-huh.
Route 100 in Berks County. It's Ben and Cara Davies' farm. And Cameron McIntosh from Americharnve Hemp will be leading this 2-day workshop. You'll be
Yes.
building hemp panels and yeah, so we'll have a link to sign up. I'll link out to the altogetherNowPA.org website on the show page for this episode.
Yes,
Um,
and the panels will be designed by Matt Marino of Homeland Hempcrete. I
right.
definitely want to plug him as well.
Okay. Yep. I've met Matt. He does great work. And
Yep.
it's amazing to me how like the hempcrete builders around the country are like forming this, I don't know what you call it, like a tapestry, right?
Nice.
It's
Yeah,
great to see.
it is. A lot of cooperation.
Yeah. And so just to recap, it's May 6th and 7th. Sign up is now on the website. It's sliding scale for cost between $50 and $100 per day.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah, and if they have any questions, they can email you directly at monica@altogetherNowPA.org.
That's right.
Cool. All right. Well, Monica Medina-McCurdy, that's the most fun name to say, so I'm going to say it again. Monica Medina-McCurdy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure is mine too, Eric. Thank you so much.
You can find the registration link for the workshop on the show page for this episode at lancasterfarming.com, or you can go right to altogetherNowPA.org to learn more. And now we're going to talk to Hempcrete builder Kim Crows up there in Michigan. She attended a few of these workshops in the past and has since launched her own Hempcrete company called Fiber Fort. Kim Crows from Fiber Fort, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just relaxing.
Nice. All right. Well, you are the founder of Fiber Fort, which I guess is a hempcrete company in Michigan. So I wonder if you could just give us a brief introduction to yourself, and then we'll talk about Fiber Fort.
I am a contractor of sorts. I started doing painting, and so I run a painting company I've ran that company for about 8 years now. And I decided about 2.5 years ago that I wanted to look into some new options. So that is where I came across Hempcrete and created Fiber Fort because I saw there was a space that was not being filled, which was that homes were being made with all of these fancy materials, but they weren't made in a safe way. That was the safety of health and sustainability wasn't being thought of in a wide perspective. So I wanted to try and fill that void essentially.
Okay.
And that's where Fiber Fort came.
So how did you find Hempcrete, and then what did you do to bring yourself up to speed on installing Hempcrete?
So it was just simply through Google searching about more natural paints that I came across Hempcrete, because Hempcrete is a natural building method. And so I just randomly came across an article, read that article, and it just kind of seemed like too good to be true, because it was talking about all these amazing properties. And I was like, no, this is way awesome. I can't believe this would even exist.
Can you list some of those amazing properties that you couldn't believe?
Oh yeah, for sure. The fireproof for one, the regulating humidity between 40 and 60%, which is optimal for a human being to be residing in. Completely natural, no additives to it whatsoever. It's biodegradable. It's absorbs carbon from the air. And so it's a negative carbon product.
Right.
Pest resistant to things like termites and bugs that would want to chew through it because there's lime in it. Hydroscopic, meaning it's self-healing and you won't have, major cracking going on in the home. And what else am I missing? I know I'm missing one more, but that's
a lot.
a good list. Yeah.
Cool. So you found this thing, and then you were like, I want to get involved in this. And what happened then?
Yeah, I just initially wanted to do more research to figure out if what I was reading was actually legit. So I started looking into, more articles and trying to find people who were doing this. And what I was finding was that there really weren't a lot of people. There was only a very, very small handful of people doing it here in the US. And all the articles that I was finding was about buildings that had been built like in Europe or,
right.
Australia or, countries far, far away. So I started contacting people locally to try and figure out if I could source these materials, because it was so simple: lime, water, and hemp. Like, it seems so simple. Like, okay, I can make this in my backyard, So I started contacting farmers to see if, I could source these materials locally.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in contact with people that were, looking to get rid of biomass and were super excited about it because they're like, we have all this biomass and we have nothing to do, we have no purpose for it. But as I went down that path, I started to learn more and more that it wasn't just as simple as I need hemp. I needed specific hemp.
Right.
I needed hemp that was grown from a fiber grain. I needed it to be building grade quality. And so just getting hemp was not, as easy as it initially seemed. And that, it just kind of took me down the rabbit hole of what do I need to do to make this happen?
I know that you did a workshop with Cameron McIntosh from Americharnve Cast Hemp here in Pennsylvania. How did you find Cameron?
So that was kind of part of the rabbit hole. So the first person that I really got in contact with that was actually a part of like the hemp industry, I guess, would be Blaine Bechtold. He is I'm not sure exactly what his role is, but he kind of manages hemp farmers, and he's part of the iHemp
iHemp
group.
Michigan.
Yeah,
Okay.
iHemp Michigan.
Right.
So I got in, I was, kind of sent in his direction. So I got his number, and then I got Rachel Berry's number, who was in Illinois. And then from Rachel Berry, I got Cameron's number.
Right.
And then, so when I talked to Cameron, if anyone knows Cameron, he can talk. So we spent, the first time I called him, I think we talked for like 2 hours on the phone.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just like back and forth, spitfiring the whole entire time.
Yeah.
And, I told him my plans and everything like that. And I don't know if it was like, it was a very short amount of time after I had first talked to him. He was driving out to Ohio to pick up his compressor for his spray machine. So he was making the trek, and he called me, and it was, I don't know, it was like a holiday. And he's like, "Hey, Kim, I'm leaving, and I have materials if you want. I will take materials with me. You can meet me in Ohio, and but you have to let me know in 15 minutes." And I was like, okay. Like, no pressure or anything.
Yeah.
So we did that. I ended up meeting him in Ohio and picked up my first load of hemp materials, the hemp and the lime binder that he carried. And yeah.
And then, so did that go into your first project, or, tell me about some of the work that you've been doing since then?
I'm sure some of it went into my first project, but I've gained a lot more materials since then, so I don't really know where all it's gone. But the initial materials that I had, I really wanted to just work with it to, understand the materials and, figure out how this whole thing works. And so I built a model where I could, and at that point I had already gone and trained with Hemptexture. Actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and did their training in Idaho. Was one of the last groups before they stopped doing their training.
Right. Because they sort of pivoted to the insulation since then.
Yeah, the hemp wool, and they just don't have time. They're running a whole thing there. So I was able to make a model and then use that model to show off to people at Arts Beats and Eats, which is a music and arts festival in Michigan.
Can you describe the model? Like, was it something you could walk into?
So we did 2 corners of a building, essentially. So you could kind of step into it and get a sense of like the sound deadening properties of it. And we had a window. And so it gave you, the sense that this is what a corner of a house would look like. It was extremely, extremely heavy. I would not do it again. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, as far as, unless you're having it on a permanent site, then you don't want to have a model as big as I did. Like, it was 8 feet tall. It was, a full,
right.
We had to use, a forklift to get it up on top of a trailer and, strap it in and then go 10 miles an hour down the road to get it to its destination. So
was that cast in place? Is that how you built that?
Yeah, that was cast in place. Yeah, okay. It was just a smallish model.
Sure. So since then, though, you've trained on, I guess it's the eReezy spray system?
Yes.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So, as you know, the whole training with the eReezy, I actually went out to meet with Cameron and do some training before he did the actual official training. And we got a little bit of time on the gun at that point. We sprayed a retrofit library on their site where they store their materials. So we got about a day of on and off, practice with that. That was a really interesting scenario because it was a retrofit and we were doing really thin walls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we did the spray application for this retrofit, but we went, I'm trying to remember. I don't think we even went beyond we were just filling in the bays of the studs. So we
Sure.
weren't really building out, and we were having a really hard time getting everything to stick because there wasn't enough for it to grab onto.
Oh, I see. Right.
That one, bay. So it was great because very early on, I got to see what can go wrong on a job site and what can, how things can become, very frustrating because we couldn't get the sprayer to work exactly as it was supposed to be functioning at that point either, because one of the tubes wasn't flowing. So, Cameron was like, well, this is a perfect example of an on-site debacle that will probably happen to you at some point.
Right.
So, so then I came back for the actual contractor training. And that was a totally different experience because we had much thicker and more controlled spaces. With the retrofit, one of the things that we had going on was the movement of the floorboards was affecting the walls.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
so every time we stepped into that room, the shock waves would then,
because it's trying to like dry and set and you want it to not move, but then you go push it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I can see that being a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one thing that I learned from that situation would be in a retrofit situation, you need to make sure that you're going to a depth that's going to, keep that monolithic wall going so that it has more bond.
Yeah.
And also that you need to make sure that there's enough structural support in that building to where you're not going to have, immense movement in home while this wall is setting. Once it was set, it was fine, but it was in the spraying process that we couldn't get it to, stay in the bays all the way.
So it was a good training. And then you actually purchased one of those eReezy spray machines, right?
I did. Yeah. I saw that despite the, the problems that we had, I saw the value in it, and I still do see the value in it, which is that it allows you to move much, much faster than if you were to be doing it by hand.
Right.
You're, doing cast in place is great in certain circumstances. If you're doing, a small retrofit, or if you're trying to get into specific corners or something like that. But even then, doing spray application, if you've got all this stuff there, it could take a day instead of a week.
Right.
So it just increases the volume of what you can do by a lot.
And then, so tell me about the first hemp house that you made.
Yeah. So the first Hempcrete house in Michigan, was built in Chelsea. And, I met that client about 8 months prior to the actual build. We had met I had been recommended to him by a friend of mine that's in this whole hemp industry.
Sure.
And so we had met a couple different times, and eventually he kind of warmed up to me. He had actually somebody else already lined up to build this house before me. And he was, I believe, from Switzerland. And it was still in that mode of like COVID. So that didn't end up working out because he couldn't get
here.
He couldn't get here. So he, came back to me and was like, I'm interested, but I'm nervous that you don't have experience, because I never done a whole house before.
Right.
It's hard because this industry is full of newbies. There's no,
Yep.
I haven't done it, but nobody else has either, spare the few people who have, but they're across, a couple states away. So
it's like when you're a kid trying to get your first job and they're like, we want somebody with experience. I'm like, well, how do you get experience if you don't hire me? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so the way that I kind of helped him get to that comfort level was, I was like, well, what if I bring Cameron on board to help, to kind of like guide us as we're doing this job? He's not going to be doing the work, the job per se. He's going to be there to help, set us up for a couple days, make sure everything's good. And then, and so that really calmed his nerves. And he was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Cameron ended up staying for the entirety of the job.
Okay.
Because he was, this was, even though this is a new build, it was essentially a retrofit. So what happened with this house was, I was brought on too late for certain things to happen in the proper way that they should have been, with the framing, the preparation for making sure that there was a ice and water barrier between the foundation and the base plate.
Okay.
And, making sure that the windows were done properly, any of these details. So we had to do a full day of carpentry on our first day there. Instead of focusing in on actually installing and putting up form boards, we had to do a whole bunch of adjustments to the build in order to actually even start. So, with that start of the process, I think Cameron kind of felt like he just wanted to make sure that everything went smoothly, and he's a good guy and he's looking out for me. So he stayed on the whole time, and me and Stephanie and Vaughn probably, and Osmond, we all spent time on the gun. We call it the gun.
Yeah.
I guess that sounds odd to some people maybe, but me and Stephanie spent the most time on the gun. And then Cameron after that, and then Osmond and Vaughn spent a little bit of time on the gun just to have the opportunity to spray.
Nice.
Yeah, because it's a technique.
When do you think you will be able to source your hemp herds from Michigan?
Oh, yeah. I would love to say in 2 years. I don't know if that's even possible.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. It's just somebody has to step up with the right equipment. For building grade materials. There's processors that are popping up pretty regularly now. One of them I just met from South Dakota. Yeah. And it's becoming a bigger thing because farmers are not so much farmers, but I guess people who are looking for an investment are seeing that there's value in it.
Right.
And farmers are, interested in the idea if they think that it's really going to work. So there's a little convincing that has to go on with that, just due to the fact that, the whole CBD market thing. But I think there are growers here. I've talked to several of them who are growing fiber. They know how to grow fiber. It's not the issue of the farmers. The material is here.
Yeah.
It's just, we need processing.
Yep.
Yeah. So the investment that it takes to get somebody in here and putting the processing facility in, that's what has to happen. I mean, it could happen sooner. I don't know. We have a huge market here for hemp in general, insulation specifically, because of the auto industry. The auto industry has reached out to multiple people who are in the hemp industry, looking for fiber insulation to put into their panels for cars. So, I mean, that would be huge.
And they're looking for a huge amount too. So they need like
huge
a
amount.
steady
not
supply.
A small amount.
Yeah.
So one little processing facility is not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to take a buildup of things to get to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so someone's got to step up to the plate, and it can't be someone like me. I'm in the building sector, and that's where I belong.
Right.
So there's going to be have to be someone who, fits that bill that wants to make that move.
Yep. Now that you finished that first hemp house in Michigan, are you getting, a lot more inquiries now about more?
Yeah, that was a tough build for me. Just because of the amount of, I guess, trials that I had to get through to make that happen. And so it took me a bit of time to kind of recover, and I've had a lot of inquiries about new builds, even whole subdivisions, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I'm following up with those people, as I can. But I'm also running my painting business at the same time. So it's, trying to get my footing and figuring out how to move forward in a way where I can manage everything and be ready for it, has been like my biggest focus and goal. So, I'm putting all the pieces there together so that I can take on, bigger projects. So yeah, there's a lot of inquiries.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. I just have to get a few more pieces together, and I think we'll be, ready to start moving forward on things. But
awesome. Well, Kim, you're a pioneer out there in Michigan, so I wish you the best of luck in everything you're doing.
Thank you.
And so it's great to hear your story. Thank you for sharing time with me today.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for having me on.
If you want to get in touch with Kim or see some photos of the work she's doing up there in Michigan, go to fiberfort.com. And I'll have a link to the registration page for the Hempcrete workshop happening May 6th and 7th here in Pennsylvania. I'll have that link at lancasterfarming.com. My name is Eric Herlock. I'm the digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. And this week I'm headed out to Colorado for the 9th annual NOCO Hemp Expo. And my trip out there to NOCO is made possible with generous support from Sunray Hemp at 62 North. All right, until next time, maybe I'll see you in Colorado Springs.
Industrial hemp.
Season 3, Episode 10 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2023 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, which is part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Herlock, and the music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.